Welcome to my very first episode of my new podcast. I'm here today with Mike Souza from Co Wealth. Thanks for coming on the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Yeah, dude. I'm super excited to be starting off this podcast, especially with someone like yourself. I want to give a little bit of background on why I'm doing this because, this is a first episode, but we are now going to be moving into a podcast segment where I'm going to be interviewing influential people in our community. Most of these guys are guys I've known for a while, different industries. The goal for me is to provide informational, educational tips and tricks on a myriad of topics to people, that follow me, that know me in my sphere. The goal is to really just, have some fun, have a good time and just, again, educate the community on different topics. I'm going to be bringing on different industry leaders that are experts in their craft. Here today with Mike. He is in the financial wealth management sector. And, we've been friends now. How long, Mike? About 6 months?
Yeah, about 6 months now.
So, yeah, we met and kind of hit it off right out of the gate. I feel like we're very similar creatures.
My brother from another mother.
That's right. Yep. Both got large families, beautiful wives. Our families mesh well. In fact, we've already taken a vacation together, which was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Havasu.
That was a good time. So yeah, if you don't mind, Mike, can you give me just a quick kind of overview, a little background on yourself and, what you do for a living?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CEO, founder, and lead advisor at Co Wealth Management. Our office is out of Carmel Valley here in local San Diego, and started the firm 4 years ago. But previous to that, when I moved out to San Diego toward the end of 2002, I started in the wealth management training program at UBS. I was stationed out of La Jolla office there. And, was a top performer in the training program, became one of the youngest sales managers here in San Diego for the firm at 27. And, spent about 5.5 years there. And while I was there, partnered with another advisor who became a very good personal friend. And we transitioned our business to Morgan Stanley, where we were there for about 10.5 years in private wealth. And then eventually I decided to break out and start my own firm. Really for the main focus of what we do today, which is helping families kind of manage through the difficulties and the questions and issues that they have around trying to build permanent wealth and really trying to build multi-generational wealth. So it's a lot of what we do, a lot of what we focus on, and one of the main reasons why people come and work with us.
Well, I mean, I met lots of financial planners in what I do, day in and day out. And obviously we're in similar, fields. We deal with people and finance and money and, helping them make decisions on how they're going to improve their lifestyle. And I got to say, you're definitely that top tier of financial wealth advisors. I mean, I've interacted with, hundreds of them in my career. I've been doing this 20 years. And it was very apparent to me when we first met, went out to breakfast that morning. You know what you're doing and you're actually starting to help me out with some of my stuff, which is cool. I appreciate all you're doing for me and my family.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's get into a couple details here. So, there's lots of strategies out there. There's lots of different ways to kind of tiptoe into managing someone's, financials and helping them create a plan. What are some of the strategies or tips that you like to start out with when you're first introducing to a new family?
That's a great question. I think about, I like to use analogies with clients, right? I find that if you can kind of paint them a picture, it helps to demystify the financial world and break things down to simpler terms that people can relate to. So whether it's, I want to use a sports analogy of kind of learning how to block and tackle, right? Like in football, the basics, or like a house. If anyone's ever, built something, you want to start with the foundation first and then kind of put up the walls, the roof, and then, the furniture and all the rest of it. So I think, again, speaking to people in a language that they can understand, kind of unjargoning the financial world, I think is very important.
It can be complicated. People get kind of caught up in all the details. You got to just keep it simple.
They do. And at the end of the day, it's about building trust, right? And building trust means that both parties have to be on the same page. I'm 20 years in the business at this point. People expect me to be competent, so I don't spend a lot of time trying to show them how smart I am. I'm kind of past that point in my career, maybe at 23.
It comes across real well that you know what you're talking about.
But I really just want to break it down, keep it simple. So what we always do is we say, look, everyone always asks us about the investing side of the ledger. And I get it. It's sexy and interesting and everyone wants to make money. That's how we're compensated. And that makes sense. However, what we always try to remind people is the investments are a means to an end, right? What you really want to understand is where are you trying to go and in what kind of time frame. So we really kind of back the truck up and start at the beginning, right? The foundational piece of everything we do with our families and our clients is starting with financial planning. And that's a very general term, but what it focuses on are all the areas that are a part of a family's life, right? Because it's about protecting your wealth. It's about growing your wealth. It's about transferring your wealth. It's about understanding how to use debt properly and appropriately, understanding insurance, estate planning, taxation. So there's all these different pieces that need to tie together that really help optimize a family's financial situation. So for us, we start with the planning. We break down each one of those areas. And we focus on sometimes very simple things that people forget to do. Budgeting is a classic one, right? Most people, 90% of people we run into, we ask them, hey, do you know how much you spend every month? And they give us the blank stare like, I have no idea.
People just fly by the seat of their pants.
You know, they're like, well, I make good money. All my bills get paid. I'm fine. And I'm like, fair, understand that approach. And then I tell them my own anecdotal story years ago. You know, I was working, wife was working, we had lots of income coming in and again, the bills were getting paid every month, but I had a sense that we weren't probably saving as much as we could or we should, but I didn't have any data to support that. It was just kind of a feeling.
Right.
So actually during the holiday season, I went back to Jan 1, right, and reconciled all the bank statements and credit cards, put it all in an Excel, and actually found out that we were spending roughly $1,000 more every month than what we were bringing in.
Wow.
But I couldn't see it because of the cash flows coming in and out, the numbers and all the rest of it. And so just by focusing and being aware of that, the following year, we went from a deficit of $1,000 a month to a surplus of $7,000 a month, right? An $8,000 delta.
That's huge.
And so, and it wasn't huge, massive changes. It's not like we went from, you know, eating out at steak dinners every night to staying home eating tuna fish sandwiches. It wasn't anything like that, but it was just being more aware and being more cognizant of here are the choices we're going to make.
Yes.
And again, just tracking that throughout the year. So I tell every client, you know, whether you're making 100,000 or $1 million a year, it's something that, you know, we want to come up with a budgeting strategy, either intricate or simple, but you really need to know where your money is going first before you can figure out what's realistic to say, I can save, or I can do this, or I can execute on that. So again, starting with the basics, building that foundation, and then, you know, adding to it over time.
I love the budget analogy because I mean, you know, in my world doing mortgages, you know, we're looking at debt to income ratio. We're looking at how much money you make, how much money is on your credit cards and all those other expenses that you have on a monthly basis. So we kind of are doing a very high level budget for people. But what you're talking about, where you go very granular and being able to, you know, it's cool with technology today. You can go into any of your credit cards, or you can go to even your Amazon account and see where you're spending on Amazon, and you can drill it down and drop it into a spreadsheet and really study the math. And that's where, again, you find those segments. You're like, wow, I'm spending X amount over here. You know, I've done that same exercise with my household, and it's mind boggling sometimes. I mean, you find all this stuff where you're spending money, not even realizing it, on subscriptions. Like, you know, you've got, you know, multiple music, you know, Pandoras and Spotify's and all these extra accounts where you're just, you know, kind of wasting money, and you can trim the fat in so many areas if you just sit down and study it and spend that, you know, a couple hours or whatever it takes to dissect the math. So it's huge. So you help your clients do that.
Absolutely. So, you know, again, we have budgeting tools. We use a platform called eMoney, which you've been recently exposed to.
Very cool.
Where, you know, clients can store financial documents in an encrypted vault. They have a dashboard where all of their different assets and accounts can be linked up, so they can actually see their net worth kind of going up and down on a daily basis.
That's a little dashboard
if they want to. And then it also has a budgeting tool. It's very similar to, you know, a lot of people are familiar with Mint, right? Which is a product from Intuit, where you link up accounts and it starts to track your spending and categorize it for you. So again, it's, you know, as people are responsible for their own success, right? Success is a choice. It's not an accident. In any part of your life, whether it's your career, your finances, your relationship with your spouse, your children, right? It's the choices you make every day accumulate into something good or something less than optimal. And so we just tell people, look, I mean, we want to help people get focused. We want to help people get accountable, right? Your results are going to be exactly what you put into the process.
I love it. I love it. you and I were having a conversation. I think you might have started it when we were out in Havasu about strategies like Roth IRAs, right? And a lot of people don't necessarily understand them. They've heard the term, maybe they have one, kind of hands off, don't do a lot with it, but it's an excellent tool that a lot of people either, again, maybe utilizing. But let's talk a little bit about Roth IRAs and some of the strategies that you guys like to implement with your clients.
Yeah, we're huge believers in it. Probably about 12 years ago, I read a book by a gentleman called Ed Slott, and he's kind of an IRA expert within our industry. And he really spent a lot of time within the book focusing on Roth IRAs, how they can be utilized, and how the compounding of assets in those accounts can really help families, again, build permanent multi-generational wealth. What people forget is, if they have $1 in an IRA, it's not really $1. Right? You're going to have to pay income tax on that at some point, right? So it might be 70 cents, 60 cents, depends on what your tax bracket is, but $1 is not $1. In a Roth IRA, $1 is $1. When you eventually make those withdrawals to use that capital, you do not pay tax on it. And in the meantime, every year, those dividends, interest, capital gains accrue and compound. They're doing so on a tax-free or frictionless basis, right? So we always look at, how can we help our clients get capital into those accounts? Now, the difficulty is there's a lot of rules and restrictions around funding them. So if you're a high net worth individual, you cannot contribute directly to a Roth IRA. You are phased out from an income standpoint. Right. So the other strategies we look at are, number one, most employers offer a 401k and they will have a Roth option. So what we'll do is we'll run the math of saying, okay, if you were to do a pre-tax option with this amount of contribution versus a Roth option, you'll take a tax deduction on a traditional IRA now, right? But you'll have to pay tax potentially on a much bigger number that accumulates later. Or do we want to pay the tax as we go now, let that money grow and compound into a big number and be tax-free? So we show clients the math, right? Like I'm an engineering accounting type brain. Like you can tell me the concept works, but I'm like, great, show me the evidence.
Show me the math.
Show me the math. Math doesn't lie. Right?
Don't give me the answer. I want to see your work.
Exactly. So we run the math for them. We put it in front and say, here's what we're suggesting and here's why, right? And so once they see the data, they're like, cool. So a lot of times we're switching clients now and suggesting that they make contributions to a Roth 401k. I'm even doing it myself. My whole career up to this point, I'd always done fully tax deductible contributions to a traditional 401k until January of this year.
I'm guilty of that.
And the reason is I was like, hey, I've got, high income, I need the tax deduction. And so I've been doing it, and that makes sense. However, when I started looking at it again over the holidays this past year, I looked at what was in my 401k and I said, all right, let's say I take that capital and I compound it at 7%, which is not a crazy return over the next 30 years. I'm 43. By the time I hit 72, I'll have required minimum distributions. That capital can double 3 more times. And so I looked at that number and said, wow, well, if that number does double 3 more times, I'm going to have this very large number in a 401k, and I'm going to have massive RMDs that I'm taking every year, which are pretty much going to put me in the top federal bracket before I do anything else. Right. So I looked at that and said, okay, well, I've already accrued what's going to be a pretty large tax liability here. I want to now start building up this Roth side of the bucket. Right. So I've switched some. Yeah, so I've already done the pre-tax for years. Now I'm going to focus on the Roth. And what investors need to also realize is the deferral portion they put in as an employee, that portion is Roth. Anything your employer is going to put in, a matching, a profit sharing, that's always going to go into the pre-tax bucket because your employer wants a deduction, right, on that contribution. That's part of why they're making it, right? They're trying to reduce the income for the entity.